Da 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 da.
Oh no!
Oh, it's not Jeff. Hey everybody, we're back, baby. Better believe it, son. Ooh. So we took a couple weeks off. In an effort for I'm losing all my words today. Oh my god. In an effort to be transparent, yeah. I was having some mental health issues. I'm doing better. We're back. So deal with it, kids. We are here. I am Jesse Drew alongside my brother, Jeffrey Watson, the third Esquire, attorney to movies, a defender of horror films. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing great. Doing great. I'm happy that you're doing better. And
Thank you.
you know how I feel. So I'm glad that you're back. I'm glad that we're back doing this. And I'm glad that we get to talk about this film because wow, what a classic.
Wow is right. Wow is like wow times 500 for Jaws 1975. We are talking about Steven Spielberg's breakout blockbuster summer crazy launched thousands of people to try to kill sharks. Not a good thing, but it's the response based on Peter Benchley's best-selling book Jaws. Jaws with John Williams's famous score, the da 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 da. The titular Jaws shark that we only get for like I forget how many minutes it is, but it's not that many minutes that we actually see the shark in the movie, which is awesome. We'll get to that. Amazing performances by Robert Shaw, Roy Scheider, Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah.
I don't know the mayor's name, but I thought he was the actor played a scummy mayor. Yeah. There was a meme going around. I don't know if you remember in 2020 when we were all on lockdown, and I think it was Texas, Georgia, or Florida. One of those states wanted to open up the beaches, and a meme came out, and it was like, guess who else wanted to open up the beaches?
Yeah.
And it was the mayor from Jaws, and then I don't know if you've seen Ghostbusters, the one with the all-female cast.
Oh, yeah.
And Kristen Wiig is like yelling at Andy Garcia, who's the mayor of New York City in the movie, because he won't do anything about like this, ghost apocalypse that's coming. And she's like, don't be like the mayor from Jaws. He's like, never say that to me. I'm not the mayor from Jaws. But he totally was. So anyway, we love Jaws. Such a good pick. I just can't even get past that. But I do want to tell all of you guys that according to the internet, this movie was made for just over $9 million. And this is 1975, 74, I guess, when it was made, money. So, 9 million then probably is like 90 million today. I don't know what inflation is, but 9 million was their budget thereabouts. They went over budget because the mechanical shark that they were using kept like blowing up. It kept having mechanical problems. It kept so they'd have to like start all over. And back then, I mean, there wasn't CGI, you know what I mean? For people who don't, or maybe younger. I don't think we have that many younger listeners. I think everybody's around our age, but just saying, in case somebody's happened upon our podcast, back then there was no CGI, guys. So if the shark that they're using underwater to scare people blows up or something gets busted up, they're out for a few days at the least trying to fix it by hand, or maybe having to use another shark altogether. That being said, so that's why their budget was actually a lot higher than it was supposed to be. And it raked in supposedly over $472 million, which is,
Good Lord.
that's berserk for now money. I don't
Yeah.
know what inflation is. We need to get like a website. We need to find a website that will
Yeah.
tell us inflation, like
You know what?
accurate inflation.
Let's hit up the Google machine right now while we're talking. So
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I'll let you do that because I'm like, what? But I'm just amazed. $472 million in 1975 money. That's, I don't know how, I can't remember what the numbers were for the Avengers movies, but that's like Avengers money,
that
you
is
know?
a money.
That's crazy. That means like every single person in the United States in 1975 went to go see Jaws. Every single person. Babies. Babies too. And they had to pay their full ticket.
Yep. No discounts.
No discounts for the babies, because they were
Oh,
trying to make that money.
so here we go.
Okay.
That was quick. So if they had that same budget today,
Uh-huh.
it would be $45 million.
Oh, wow. That's how much? Inflation, huh? Jeez.
400%. And you said how much? Did they
472 million was
400?
what their box office took in.
So that would be 2.3 billion.
Stop.
Yep,
Oh my
2.3.
God. What?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
would make it like the biggest movie that ever was. That's insane.
That is
I
insane.
I don't know, like, I wonder like how, oh, you know what? Type in this, if you're still on that website, type
Mhm.
in 1.8 million, because that's how much Universal Pictures spent on marketing for Jaws. And I think that money was just totally well spent. I mean,
Almost 6 million.
okay. I don't know what like a typical marketing budget is, but I don't think it's that much. Because some movies are like made for that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. A
They're
lot of
like,
movies are made for that.
so yeah, it's just incredible. Anyway, so this started, I mean, this was one of the movies that really, I mean, it clinched Spielberg's career. Forget it. Like he's just, now he can do whatever he wants forever. And he followed that up obviously with a slew of amazing movies. So, you know, like what's the next one? Like E.T. that was like that probably made over $1 billion in today's money. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but it also kind of started off like, the idea of summer blockbusters and the movie as a huge money making machine, like to that level. I don't know that there were too many other films to that level. I don't know what The Godfather did, because I know that was like around the same time period, but it was like, you know, Spielberg and Coppola and all those, and like, you know, those guys that were all in that sort of California school, making these movies that incurred these amazingly wide audiences that just would go back again and again to see these films, you know? And with Jaws, let's get into why people would want to see this movie again and again. Jeff, was this your first time seeing the movie?
No, I'd seen it quite a few times, but I was much younger. I remember the first time that I saw it, and again, I still have to ask this question. I really don't know what our parents were thinking back in the day of letting us watch certain movies. But I watched this movie, you know, very, very young. And I just remember going to the beach, which was not very far away from where I grew up, maybe a couple hours at most, and just remembering looking at my mom and saying, "You want me to go out there at what happened in Jaws?" And she's like, "Well, that was just a movie." I was like, "Yeah, but sharks are real, Mom." So it's like I love you, but I
It's
don't
not
want
just
to
a
go.
movie.
Yeah, it's not just a movie. I don't want to go out there. And plus, you know, I would just be like a little mere morsel at that point. I wouldn't even be a good meal.
Aww.
So, you know, yeah, this movie, I don't want to say it traumatized me, but it definitely stood out. Like, okay, there are a few movies that I remember to this day that had a very, very distinct impact on my life. This is one. But going back and watching it now, I just appreciate how they were able to pull this off in 1975. And you know, it's suspenseful, it's gory in some parts. Um, I think they do a lot of effective things with looking at black and white photos in here as opposed to just like showing everything in color, which I think is very effective. But yeah, this wow, like I'm so glad that we're doing this because it gave me an opportunity to go back and see something that I probably hadn't seen in 10 or more years. So
Wow. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, I'm so glad I got a chance to see it. You know, I think we watched it July 5th. It's still the
mhm.
July 4th weekend, you know, technically, whatever. And I told my son, who is 9 years old, that he could watch it with us this time if he wants to. Because, like, in the past, he's been interested, like, oh, what's Jaws? And I've told him a little bit about it, but it's too young, you know. Um, so he started watching it with us and lost interest really quick.
Really?
He said, and he's a movie guy. He likes movies, you know, but he said he kind of liked it, but it was really boring. And I'm thinking to myself, that's the generational thing because this movie is billed as horror, you know, it's definitely billed as horror, like for sure. And it's really what it is. It's like a suspenseful. It's terrifying because it's like that terror but it's like a quiet terror. You
Right.
know, it's those camera angles is what got me.
Mhm.
Where I mean, it's just so simple but masterful, the camera being underwater and having the vantage point of the shark, you know, seeing everybody's legs, like, you know, doing that on, you know, under the water, and the sound goes down, you know, because we're under the water,
Mhm.
and it's just the shark surveying its, you know, its buffet. And
Yeah.
I can't think of another camera angle off the top of my head that makes me feel so vulnerable and scared. I was like, because that's all of us when we're in the water, you know? That's why the only time I will go into the water is in a pool. And that's just, I'm talking about like how, like relating back to what your story about being little and talking to your mom and being like, I'm not going in the water. I do not go into the ocean. I am sorry, but not sorry. I don't care. We're on the East Coast where it's rocky and cold and salty and there's no sharks. Like really for the most part. I mean, there were some I think like a few years ago off Coney Island, but like whatever. Um and I don't care. I don't like to go where I can't see what I'm stepping into. No, thank you. You know, I don't care if it's like 3 feet of water. But anyway, so yeah, so my son wasn't really too into it. He sat with us and just went on his iPad, which I don't like for him to do. I don't like for anybody to be on any devices when I'm watching a movie.
Right.
I don't like to like be bossy pants about anything, but if we're watching a movie, we're watching a movie. If you don't want to watch it, no offense taken, just go to the other room and be on your device, you know. But
Right.
he really wanted to sit with us, so it was just like, okay, sit with us, but just, you know, be quiet. um, yeah, the movie is it's a lot of things like you described. It's, you know, suspenseful, it's gory. The scene in, oh my god, I mean, honestly, when have I felt more squeamish than that scene with Richard Dreyfuss going into the coroner's office, and he wants the remains of the first girl that's killed, and they bring out like a little tub that looks this big, that's like 14 inches long.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't even catch that at first. I had to rewind it for some reason, and I was like, oh my God, that's the girl's remains. Like, that's it. It's just her hand. And then he like lifts up the hand and he wants to like vomit. And I'm like, I want to vomit, you know, like,
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, this movie really did launch like people taking sharks as their like, as, I mean, they're a predator, right? They're a predator species, but not really for humans. But
Right.
because of this movie, like we've watched so many shark shows because my son was interested in sharks since he was very little. Shout out to my son for that shark toy that I used. But every single scientist on every single show we've seen has said how this movie was detrimental to sharks in real life, that they are like, you know, their numbers have dwindled significantly since Jaws was released. And I'm like, you can't blame people. They're fucking scary. Excuse my language.
Exactly.
I can't.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, yeah. I understand. Sorry for the shark population, but at the same time, if you watch this movie, you too would be like, you know what? Screw sharks. Like, it's either me or them, and I don't want to be shark food. So, you know, that's kind of where that comes from. And, you know, darn you, Steven Spielberg, for making a great movie.
Exactly. I know. You know, if we could just for a minute with Steven Spielberg, I want to not like him so much because I feel like he's been such a like, I don't know, like A-list, like top dog. But I kind of feel sometimes his movies have been so basic, you know, like so basic and at times like kind of hokey. But I don't know. He also has made some really good movies. So I can't, like, this movie I thought was brilliant. And it was brilliant in its storytelling. And it's brilliant in its, like, just get right to the point. There doesn't need to be a lot of fancy whatnots. You know, there's some camera magic and there's some, you know, obviously like the shark that they use is a mechanical shark, etc. It's not a real shark. So spoiler alert on that if you didn't know. But, you know, like you don't have to get crazy like to make this movie terrifying. Like that shot I was just telling you, that's so basic, so easy, and so terrifying. The story, it shifts from this like where they're trying to contain the pandemonium that could happen if they closed the beaches and their people really, really were told the truth about there being, you know, possibly like this huge apex predator, like, you know, in the waters, and the tension, you know, all of this. And then the mania that happens when, you know, the little boy gets eaten on the beach and the other kids witness the guy being eaten, you know, and then it shifts from that, all of that craziness, and we see like the July 4th weekend, and you know, everyone's at the beach and all this tension in the town and all this stuff, and then it just shifts into this like almost like operatic, you know, sort of like the second half of the movie of, you know, between Quint and Hooper and Brody all being together on this tiny ship hunting this, you know, creature that is, what they say, it's like 3 tons and over 25 feet long. And, you know, when Brody sees it and he's like, we need a bigger boat. And he's like, not even talking to anybody. He's so terrified. He's like, we need a bigger boat. We need a bigger boat. We're going to go get a bigger boat. Right. And then like Quint comes and smashes the radio because he's like not having it. He's like, no, we're catching this shark, not us and like the Coast Guard. Like we're doing this. Oh my God. What? I can't. No, really, you have to say something because I can't anymore. I'm done.
That the way that they shifted that though was brilliant because we could have kept going on for another little bit with the shark attacking people, but then it's like, okay, what's the resolution? How, like, what are you going to do about it? So I feel like them shifting that focus from seeing all of the damage and the carnage and the terror that this monster created to we're going after it now. And it's just us, us three essentially going after this huge beast. That whole thing creates tension in and of itself because they're on this boat that's not big enough that that Jaws could probably munch up in a few bites. um and you're just playing that game of where's the shark, where's the shark, when is it going to attack, when is it going to rear its ugly head. And that was so brilliant in my opinion because you immediately shift from, okay, everybody else is in danger, to, all right, these three guys who we've gotten to know a little bit more, especially with the whole the dialogue between the three when they go visit Quint, and they have that dialogue, and he's trying to get them to drink stuff, and Brody's like, yeah, don't drink that. He spits it out, that kind of thing. And it's such a funny back and forth between those characters. And then you take it from that moment to its sheer terror and panic, especially when Brody sees Jaws. It's like, holy crap. Like, this is scary. So,
yeah, he can't even talk.
Right. I mean,
at first he can't even talk.
It's just sheer panic, which is brilliant. I mean, and maybe I'm a nerd. Well, not maybe. I am a nerd. I have to accept it.
You're not a nerd.
Accept it. But the way that the camera framed his face when he saw the shark, it was perfect because it encapsulated that entire moment of terror. And it makes you kind of think, how would I feel? What would my facial expression be in this moment if I were to see the same thing? And that's just a brilliant piece of camera work. It's brilliant editing. And that's why I say I'm a nerd, because I'm talking about the editing and all that. Yeah. But it's brilliant. Like that's effective movie making 101.
Well, see, that's the thing. I feel like Spielberg takes, like what you just said, like effective filmmaking 101, which you can learn. You don't have to go to school. You know what I mean? If you're astute, you can watch old movies, you know what I mean? And see what they did and see what worked. And you watch the movies that were effective, he takes all of that information and he just plugs it right in, but it works, like, and he gets the performances out of actors, like Roy Scheider, he, like you said, like his face, and then just how he's walking, like he walks backwards, like into the cabin, and he's talking to himself, and it takes Quint being perceptive and like seeing the terror, which he recognizes, because as we're going to find out later, like he knows what terror about sharks is. So he recognizes that, and he's like, oh shit, the shark is here. It's here. It's exactly what you said. It's brilliant. The movie is brilliant that way. I kind of remembered their conversation at nighttime, when they're like, they're drunk. Well, the Quint and Hooper are drunk, and they're showing each other their kind of like, their battle scars, both being, water on the waters guys, but Quint always mocking Hooper as being this, like, wealthy intellectual, whereas like, and Hooper says to him, like, is this some sort of is this some sort of a battle, like of the classes, like that you're, you know, it's going to be you against me, you know, which it is interesting, you know, and Richard Dreyfuss is awesome. He's funny in this movie, like him just making faces at Quint behind his back, you know, like a little kid would. It's great. It's exactly what you need, like right then, you know. Oh, before I forget, best jump scare ever. I'm talking about like ever. And I can't believe Steven Spielberg gave me the best jump scare ever. When Richard Dreyfuss goes on, this is like a separate scene where he's like on the boat with Brody, and he puts on his scuba gear really quick because they see the boat of one of the local fishermen out where it's not supposed to be, and it's all busted up, and he hops down into the water. And and all of a sudden you see a decapitated head come right at him. He drops all his instruments and is like, woo, and like runs. I jumped so high, and I was just like, like trying to catch my breath. And I was like, I can't believe I'm literally doing what people say they do all the time, but like, you know, they don't really do that.
Yeah.
I actually had one of those moments, you know, like where I jumped and like, you know, in my seat and jumped back and like let out a scream and was like, I can't believe Steven Spielberg just got me. Like,
yeah,
it was amazing. It was amazing. So I just didn't want to let that go because I know I would forget about it, but that definitely give Jaws a props. That didn't require seeing the shark. That was just some straight up scary nonsense, you know? But yeah, I kind of always remembered their conversation that night as like a little bit on the boring side. I don't know why, but so we're watching it and I was like, this is not that boring actually. And I remember his story about being on the USS Indianapolis, was it? Being completely terrifying.
Yeah.
And that was like, I mean, that's before open water. You know what I mean? Like that's the open water before open water. And it's just so terrifying. And him telling the story, how he tells it is so scary. I think Robert Shaw just gets all the credit, I think, for this movie. He's just amazing. And yeah, and then like I gotta ask you though, because it's like something that I can't really reconcile. And that's, so of the three of them, like if you had to say like of the three of them, who's gonna die or who's sort of like supposed to die, you know, there's like a tragic hero, or there's just the person who's tragic, you know, their whole life is tragic and you know that they're not gonna make it, you know, or the surprise, like that person died. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that person died. He wasn't supposed to die, you know? Yeah. I was actually surprised. I'm not say surprised. I was actually like interested in why Quint had to die.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he was the one who set out, like when they first had the meeting in the town hall or whatever, the mayor's hall, and he showed up and he's like, I'll find you that shark for $10,000. Like, this is what I do. Take it or leave it. Goodbye. And he was all creepy, you know. He's like, he came in like a David Lynch character, you know, like totally like freak show. And didn't he even have like kind of like, you know, like a little person with him too?
Yeah,
like
he had
him.
Yeah, he had this guy that was just there, and he says his piece, he leaves, and then the guy kind of slinks behind him, and
right.
you know,
I feel like
it was weird. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's like David Lynch, you know what I mean? But anyway, so I feel like okay, yeah, he was looking for the fight with the shark. I get it. You know, he's like, I'm the one that's going to do this and you guys are going to pay my, you know, my bill. So finally they're out there and like I'm thinking to myself, like, is Quint the one to die? Because isn't he the one who's like going to save? He's supposed to be the one to save everybody. That's what he proposed he would do at that meeting. Like, you know, because in movies, like, it's funny. I don't know if you find this. This is the way I've often seen it roll. you like have to pay attention to what people say in movies, because usually the movie will literally, like, I'm not using literally in like the euphemistic sense, like the movie literally will do what a character says it's going to do, you know? So Quint is saying, I'm gonna get that shark, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And he actually doesn't. He dies, and Brody gets the shark. Like, is it, I don't know. I could go on, but I want to know what you think of that. I just, again, I'm not saying I was surprised, but I'm interested why he was the one to die.
Again, this is me probably being a nerd and looking into things way too deeply. But I kind of feel like, especially with a lot of movies involving nautical themes, that we see a pattern, and that's eventually the water always wins. So I feel like Quint was one of those characters where he defeated it a couple times. He's got the battle scars to prove it, but this was just his moment, even in, you know, his confidence of saying, I can get this. This was just one of the cases where the water wins, the creatures in the sea win. And he's had opportunities to defeat it before, but eventually it always wins. So that's kind of the takeaway that I had, that, you know, it to me, it makes sense for him to be the hero and saying, you know, see, I told you I could do this. I came through on my promise. But at the same time, it's like, okay, then how does Brody look after that? Like, if that happens and Quint is the one that, you know, that conquers the beast, so to speak, what's Brody's role in that? Because honestly, up until that point, Brody looked extremely terrified and weak in some cases. And he's your authority figure, so to speak, you know, throughout. So so it took something for him to kind of reclaim that, you know, dominance in some ways, to be able to come back and do that. So so yeah, that was my belief with that, is that I think, you know, the open water wins more times than not, and when you defeat it a couple times, you should consider yourself lucky and probably not chance it as many times as Quint did. But you know, he's an adventurer, so that was a part of his gig.
Do you think that the movie is saying something about the fact that Richard Dreyfuss and his character, which was, you know, sort of like he was more science. He's a scientist. He's got all this fancy equipment, you know, he's got, you know, for the time, you know, I mean, now it's dated, but at the time it's like cutting edge equipment. It's, you know, pulses and waves and, you know, whatnot. And he's got all these instruments. He's got medicine like on board to like knock the shark out or whatever it was that he was going to try to do. He's got that steel cage, which fell to shit, excuse my language.
Yes,
But, you know, but I'm wondering, like, the movie's trying to say, like, the days of people like Quint are over, and the days of people like Hooper are actually what's going to be surviving, what's going to survive, and what's going to make the difference. Because I mean, I thought it was interesting. He fell right out of that cage trying to get his spear and his equipment back. He couldn't, and he was able to hide behind some of like I don't know if that was coral or what, but like he was able to hide, and then Jaws just went after the boat, you know, and we didn't hear from Hooper until the end. But like he was the one to survive in his scuba gear, you know, and Quint just got sucked right, you know, right down into the mouth of Jaws. I just kind of was like, guess I agree with everything you said. And then the reason I asked is because you usually, not usually, you always have a good interpretation of these things, and something that I wouldn't have, thought, and in my opinion, ends up being right, like spot on. So I just am stuck on the fact that he tells this story about surviving, the explosion of the submarine that he was on, and being in the open water, and being one of like the 300 plus men out of 1100 that actually survived, not being eaten by a shark. And that ever since then, like you said, he's been like, kind of like testing, like pushing fate,
Right.
But I feel like it was just like, it's sort of unfair, maybe is the right word. I'm not sure if that's the right word. It's sort of like unfair that he should be the one eaten by Jaws, when he's survived so much worse.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like, is it worse? I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's just the three of them. One of them's missing, and then the ship is literally going down, and there's a shark. I mean, it's kind of the same situation that he was in on a obviously much smaller scale, but same situation he was in on the USS Indianapolis. And so I'm kind of like, but why then did he die now? So I don't know. I guess it just had to, for the reasons you said, like kind of push nature for, one too many times. And then also making a point about how like he's a relic and he's not going to survive, like, in the future. I don't know. I guess we should move on. I want to talk about whether, and don't laugh, and it's okay to laugh, but is Jaws a sympathetic villain? Because you and I root for the villains. I mean, kind of feel like that's almost like our show's tagline.
Yeah.
Copyright movies to be murdered by, don't steal our idea. But yeah, like we root for villains like 9 times out of 10. We do, we are sentient human beings. We are sentient beings like with a conscience. So there are times when we don't root for the villains, but it's very rare. So are we rooting for Jaws? Like, what's Jaws doing?
See, I don't want to say sympathetic villain, but I feel like misunderstood may be the right lane to put Jaws in, because it's like, okay, this is a creature, this is an animal that can't give us a motive. It's no motive, honestly. It's just, I see things, I go after them, I eat, I cause chaos. That's it. So I don't know if sympathetic. I don't know if I'd say I was rooting for Jaws. I didn't find myself rooting for Jaws. But at the same time, I think it's misunderstood. I mean, sometimes I wish we could have conversations like, let's have Jaws on the couch and say, Jaws, what's bothering you? What happened? Is there something
Jeff,
that
he's right here.
Yeah, like
He's
Jaws.
right here. You can tell him whatever you want, Jeff.
Jaws.
He's on the couch.
I just want to know what happened. What made you so bloodthirsty? That's all I want to know. And maybe he had some fish that didn't agree with him.
Evolution. Evolution made me who I am today. I'm just trying to eat and survive.
Maybe
I don't care. I don't have beef with anybody.
Maybe he had a bad seafood experience. I mean, there are people that eat seafood that never eat it again because they have a bad experience. So
he's shaking his head no.
Oh,
that's not it.
Never mind.
I prefer human meat.
Okay, then now I don't feel sorry for you, Jaws.
Well, you win some, you lose some. See ya. Well, at least look, we got some analysis. I mean, it's
There we
pretty.
go. I mean,
That's tough to do with a shark. It's not so easy to get them onto the couch. Attorney Watson, we might. I don't know. Are we gonna have to? Am I gonna have to be the attorney at large? Maybe you, because you got a knack for this.
I don't know.
Yeah, sharks talking. I don't know.
Maybe I can add that into my services. I don't know, but
A shark whisperer.
shark whisperer, yeah. I I think misunderstood for sure, because it's like, why are sharks going after humans? But
I think actually I feel like Brody was clueless about Jaws. Like, he just knew that something wasn't right and he had to try to save people, but he kept being thwarted. Like, everybody kept stopping him from like doing his job. He had like such a frustration because he's like, I'm just trying to do my job and save people's lives. Like, why won't anyone let me? And then Hooper comes in and he's got a real love for sharks and he's got a real passion about this. And then Quint has this, like, I don't know, like, he's obviously like been traumatized by his experience, right? But he's got like this whole other like take on this animal. It's almost like he's the only one who really understands. Like Hooper may love sharks and may know everything in the book and may have like the tools and the know-how and understand its patterns and stuff, but Quint understands that, like, this animal. He's seen it. He's like almost been killed by it. He knows, I forget who in the whole movie, like somebody at one point says, like, I think it's probably Quint, but I can't remember, says like, it's got like black eyes. The only time it's like their life, like their dead eyes, the only time they show any life is when they're eating and then their eyes roll back and you see the whites of their eyes. And I mean, it's like, that's it right there. You know what I mean? It's just an animal, but it's an animal that's lived so much longer than any of us. It's been on the planet longer than human beings. And I mean, what do we know? You know what I mean? Like, what do we know about it? We don't know squat. I mean, they're trying everything they can think of to catch it. And it's like, you're watching them, and that scene where like all of those fishermen go out in their little boats and stuff, and they just look like a bunch of like, dorks, like not knowing what they're doing. And Quint's just sitting, biding his time, just waiting until there have been enough people killed that the town actually does something about it, because he knows how this is going to go down. So yeah, with Jaws, I feel like he is just an animal. There's not really any room to feel any which way about him, because we're human beings and we're seeing this animal attacking human beings, specifically human beings who are vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And children, especially. I mean, Spielberg nails it. He knows that the way that we're going to feel really scared of this is that we're going to see kids possibly being, I mean, one with the third person, or the second or third person that gets killed is that little boy.
Oh boy.
And then we see all the little boys like going where they think is safe, like, and possibly, get killed, and his son is like in shock. That was terrifying as a parent to watch that. I was like, oh my God, that little boy. And the mother's like, he's dead. He's like, no, he's not. He's in shock. I'm like, that's worse. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's worse. Like, and yeah, so we're like, there's not a lot of room for feeling like, well, it's an animal and it's doing what it's doing. I mean, we know that intellectually, but I think the blame is mostly squared upon the shoulders of the mayor and other people who don't want to close the beach and close the town for the money's sake.
Right.
So it's I guess it's just the human beings. Like it keeps going back to the human beings, how stupid we are, like, you know, and how ridiculous we like scoff and laugh at, you know, in the face of death, thinking like, no, it's fine. It's not going to happen to me and it's fine. And then it's like not fine in a huge major way.
Right.
So I don't know. I give a lot of props to this movie. I think you do too. There's not a lot of psychoanalysis to be had or any, like, you know, psychology to be had in this movie. It kind of shows you everything.
Yeah.
It's like right there. That's like Spielberg style. He doesn't like hide a lot. You know, there's a lot that's said out loud. And it tells you exactly like what the character's motivation is, what their background is. You know, we get a lot of Quint. We never know was Quint ever married? Does he have children somewhere? Where is his home base? Is it, you know, off of Massachusetts, or is he from Florida? Like, we don't know any of this. We don't know how many sharks he's caught in his life, but yet we know so much about him. You know, it's like we know. It's like when you don't. It's like almost like when you meet someone and you start dating them or something, and you just like kind of like, you know, hang out with them like a few times, and you don't know like how many brothers and sisters they have, if had anything at all, but you know that they smoke all the time or that they drink a certain type of beer at a certain time of day. Like, it's like, you know, the intimate stuff. I feel like that's how it was with Quint, which makes his character so freaking interesting to me. Like, I could just keep asking questions about him, you know, and keep going. But why don't we rate this sucker? So I think that because it earned over $1 billion in our money, in today's money, I think that we are okay to change our rating system just this once to fins instead of headstones.
Yes.
Okay, because I think it's such a champ, this movie, all over, you know, the money, the story, everything. So, Attorney Watson, Jaws, 1975. How many fins?
I gotta give it 5. 5 fins. Because not only is it a great movie and really a masterclass in movie making, but the impact of the movie is something that is still felt to this day. And I mean, for a movie to be made, you know, then, and we're still talking about it now, almost 50 years later.
No way. You're right.
Almost 50 years later.
No, I don't want to believe that, but you're right.
I know. I can't believe I said that either, but almost 50 years later, the impact of Jaws is still felt. So for me, which I just definitely made myself feel old.
If you feel old, I should feel horrible because I'm older than you. You're a youngin'.
I'm not a youngin'.
You're a youngin'.
We won't give my age, but I'm not a youngin'.
You're young.
A lot of people think that I'm a lot older than what I am, and
it's because you're mature. But like, I would say that, but you're not. You're a youngin', and you still look. You look like a baby. So.
No, tell my kids that when them, because you know my daughter's like, "Daddy, why don't you have hair? Is it because you're old?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, sweetheart, I'm old." And and then my son is like, "Well, yeah, because you have all those white hairs in your beard." And yeah, it's like, thanks, son.
Jesus.
I appreciate that. So.
Are they judges on America's Next Model? Like,
I guess so. I mean, you know, I'm just waiting for them to grade my outfits for me.
What's next?
So no, but honestly, yeah, this is 5. And would I get ink? Because I know that's the next
Yeah,
question.
would you get a tattoo of anything visually of Jaws?
Why not get a shark fin? Why not? It could be my constant reminder that I don't get into the ocean. So like if I ever feel like I'm getting froggy, and I'm like I'm about to jump into the Atlantic, I can just look at my arm or wherever and say, "Yep, nope, that's not for me." So let me stay my happy behind on the shore and just stand
Right.
here with my toes in the sand, and I will not be eaten by a shark or anything else that's in that water. So
Nope. Or it could be like the signal, like if someone's like, Jeff, come on, get in the water, you can just be like, I don't think so. And you just see like the
like,
shark fin. Yeah, like how can you argue with a shark fin? You know what I mean? Like,
not
nope.
me, not
No,
me. All
not gonna
right,
happen.
sister, what about you?
5 fins. Definitely. 5 fins. Everything. Everything. Even the look of the movie, they did a good job. I wouldn't say it's beautiful, but it looks really good, you
Yeah,
know. I think they handled everything. I think they handled their business and they wrapped it up and they tied a nice little bow and they gave it to the world, and the world was forever traumatized about sharks.
yeah,
And can you imagine doing that? Like being able to pull that off? I don't think that that was even the intent at all, but that's what happened. I mean, that's genius, I
yeah,
think. Sometimes the classics are classics for a reason, and I think it's okay to admire Spielberg in this case. I
yeah,
go on a case by case basis with him, but in this case, I think it's okay to admire his work.
yeah.
And in terms of tattoos, listen, you know my love of getting inked, and while I like this movie so much, I just think sharks are so scary. I have this thing where it's like I feel like if you like, I mean, we'll just talk about tattoos. Like if you were to like tattoo something on your body, it's almost like you're calling that energy to you. I know that's supernatural thinking, whatever. Okay. Um, I wouldn't tattoo a snake on me. I feel like the serpent is a symbol of a lot of negative and dark things. Why do I want to call that kind of attention to my body? No thanks. So I kind of feel the same about sharks. I'm not saying that if I get a tattoo of a shark that I'm calling the energy of all sharks to me. For everybody that's listening, that's not what I believe. I'm just saying the energy of fear, no thank you. So no ink for Jawsy.
Gotcha. I've got to share something real quick.
Uh-oh.
Because I know sometimes we offer movie recommendations here. I don't know if you got a chance to see this or not, but on Netflix, last week they just released the first in the trilogy of the Fear Street movies. Obviously, those who grew up around the same time we did know of R.L. Stein and the Fear Street series. Well, they have a trilogy of movies that are coming to Netflix. The first was on last Friday. The next part of the trilogy comes this Friday, and then the final part is next Friday.
Oh, wow.
The first one was 1994, Fear Street 1994. It was so good. It's a definite detour from R.L. Stein being kid friendly because these are R rated. So, it takes the classic R.L. Stein story, but it makes it R rated, which was really, really good. So this one was really good. The next one is 1978. So it's got that kind of Camp Crystal Lake, Jason, Michael Myers kind of feel to it. I cannot wait for this Friday. And then the following one is 1666 that will focus on
Witch
witches,
trials. The witch
yeah,
trials.
and all of that. So if you want to take a trip down memory lane, Go watch those. They're really good. I've recommended it to a lot of people, and everyone that has watched it has not been disappointed. So
Thanks for the recommendation. Yeah, I want to check it out. Especially, I had seen that the only thing I knew about those movies were the dates. I saw that like the dates were going backwards as the
yeah,
movies were released forwards, and I thought that was really cool. I actually like kind of like just missed the R.L. Stine like craze because I think that was really like 90s. And like I may have been like just over the age for that. I remember it very well, but
yeah,
I didn't read any of them. The scary ones for me were when I was little was Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark by Alvin Schwartz. Like that was like, the I remember when the movie was coming out, I was like, no, thank you.
yeah.
I don't ever want to look at those drawings ever again. It's too scary.
Yeah.
But I will check out Fear Street. If we're giving recommendations, if I could give a quick plug for, by the way, Jeff and I are not making any sort of commission or money or anything off of these recommendations. This is just us being total, movie and book geeks, like, and wanting to share stuff with you guys. So just for the record, I got an advance copy of a book called The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix. And this book, I read it and then read it again immediately. And I'll be honest with you, every time I think of it, I want to read it again, except for the fact that it pretty much started messing with my head. Like it's so incredibly good and it's so incredibly dark that I was like getting sucked into it and feeling like I don't think I should be reading this because I'm starting to feel like all kinds of not like mentally well. But it's so good. It's so compelling. Basic story. I'm not going to give anything away because I don't believe in doing that. It's not released yet. I don't think it's supposed to be coming out soon. When it does, I'll just quickly say, if you're into horror movies at all or horror reading, but especially if you're into horror movies, you need to get this book because it is incredible. It will scare the crap out of you. It references all the horror movies that we all know and have seen, classics and new classics. And it is, it's like, it's all the stuff that you think would happen if you had survived an attack. Like if Jason was real and Camp Crystal Lake was actually real, and you were the one who survived and you were the final girl from that, what your life would be actually like. And it's a final girl support group. There's like, I don't know, like let's just say like 6 of them, and they each survived a nightmare that we know as that we understand as movies. They don't say Camp Crystal Lake, but they say like, she survived the horror at the camp that she was a counselor at when her and 5 of her counselors decided to go skinny dipping, and like, person X decided to come along and, decapitate them. She was the only one who survived. And this is what her life is like now. And they each have survived something horrific, like that horrific, that you don't come back from. And you see how they all have managed their lives afterwards. But the main character is like the most extreme of them all. And it's just so good. And there's some twists and turns, and there's action, and there's adventure, and there's some humor, and there's just a lot of dark stuff too. So definitely check that out. Grady Hendrix is a really good writer for horror books. But yeah, this one's called Final Girl Support Group. Definitely check it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have me wanting to check that out. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jeff, you've like if you don't get it, I'll get it for you because this is just right up your alley. Like, not like, but it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can handle it. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
All right. Well, it's that time, people. We thank you so much for checking out our podcast. We are people of color who are also really into movies, you know, and we love talking about horror movies because horror movies can sustain everything. They take the best and the worst of us and they say, "Come unto me, my children." And anyway, so tell your friends to check out our podcast. Send us an email, movies2be murdered by@gmail.com. We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter. We are on planet Earth. And we are also so happy that you have chosen to listen to our podcast. We hope that you enjoyed it. And we'll see you next week as we continue. July is blockbuster month. So for these 4 weeks, you can expect talk about blockbuster horror films. Whoa. All right.
That'll be a lot of fun, folks.
Yeah. All right. So we'll see you next week, people.
See
Bye.
Game over.